right, what is up, everybody? And welcome back to a brand new week of the Final Word with MattyB here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, serving the greater Delaware Valley since October 2024. December 30th. Wow, man. One more day, and we're going to call it a year. Isn't that something? It's great to be back. It's the first show of our broadcast week. It's going to be kind of a funky week with New Year's Eve and New Year's falling in this week. I was not on the air last night. I had the post game, and I will be on the air tomorrow night doing the post game as well. So no show tomorrow night, no show last night. I will be back, though, on New Year's Day. So we're going to try to dance in between the raindrops as we do here on the network at times in order to satisfy all of our other broadcasting requirements, but that's okay. I do it for the love. I don't do it for the money. I would like to do it for the money, and that's where you could help us out here. If you would, take a second and please like and subscribe, smash the bell, spread the word. Keep it coming for us. And it doesn't take you but a second, and it does not cost you anything. So we would really appreciate the help as we are full speed ahead into 2025, like it or not. And on the program tonight, of course, the lead story in town are your 2024 NFC Eastern Division champion, Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. Eagles yesterday, as a result of a 41-7 destruction of the Dallas Cowboys, have secured the NFC Eastern Division crown and have locked up the number 2 seed in the playoffs. That's as bad as it can be, or that's as good as it can get for the Eagles this year. They also keep the stigma going the streak going in the NFC East, where there has been no repeat NFC Eastern Division champion since the 03-04 Eagles did it. The Eagles are keeping that alive this year as they captured the division crown. Last year, of course, it was Dallas who won it, and no team has repeated as NFC East champions since 03-04, and it was the Eagles the last ones to do it. And it is definitely an honor for them. They deserve it. 13-3, 13-win season, regardless of what happens on Sunday in New York, doesn't really matter at this point. And that'll be a big story heading into the game against the Giants. Not necessarily the game, but who plays in that game and the opponent looming after that game, because it's shifting around as a result of what happened yesterday or over the weekend around the NFL. It's an honor and accomplishment that needs to be recognized that the Eagles were able to win the NFC East. And I am not going to steal that thunder from them. I acknowledge that. And I congratulate the Eagles for that accomplishment. It's not easy. They said it's not easy winning games in the NFL, and the Eagles did it this year to a almost. I mean, it was an eerily easy road to victory for the Eagles. They were challenged, a couple, 3, 4, 5 times this season, answered the bell most of those challenges. The rest of the games, they pretty much steamrolled their way through it and have put themselves in a position heading into the playoffs as regarded as one of the most dominant or feared teams in the NFC. I do not take that away, nor do I not acknowledge that. I don't believe in it, but I acknowledge it. I don't believe that this team is going to win a Super Bowl, but I acknowledge their accomplishments up to this point, because if I don't, then I'm a hypocrite to myself, because it's right there in front of my face. So 13-3, Saquon Barkley over the 2,000-yard plateau on the season. Now, I've seen various indications of where he's at. I've seen 2003. I've seen 2005. I've seen 2004. I guess somewhere between 2003 and 2005 yards he has accumulated on the ground this season, setting himself up for a potential all-time single-season NFL rushing record with about 100 yards if he plays on Sunday. And that's got to be the lead story as we turn the page into the Giants, is whether or not Saquon Barkley plays or whether or not any of the Eagle starters play, and the importance of Saquon Barkley's record versus the Super Bowl championship. And there's a case to be made on both sides of that coin, and I will lend you my 2 cents tonight as well about that. We'll get into a little bit to the Cowboy game. There's really not much for me to break down on this damn thing. The Dallas Cowboys stink, right? I was calling for a 27-17 or 24-17 win, Eagles win. I wasn't expecting a blowout, but it was very evident early on. Cooper Rush is just garbage. Without CeeDee Lamb, without Dak Prescott, it is what it is, right? And it was a blowout. The game was over by freaking halftime as the Eagles methodically took apart the Cowboys throughout the first half of this game without Jalen Hurts. A dinged up Kenny Pickett. And then he had to leave, and Tanner McKee came in through his first ever career touchdown pass, had the ball snatched from him, from A.J. Brown, tossed up there in the stands, was able to get it back. Good stuff. Yeah, and the Eagles pretty much steamrolled their way to victory. Forced 4 more turnovers yesterday. Have forced 9 turnovers in the last 2 weeks. And are looking pretty unstoppable. And I will give you that credit. But there's always got to be a but with me. There's always got to be another side of this with me, right? Because it's not all roses if you look at it. The Eagles are going into the most delicate time of the year. I shouldn't say delicate. The most important time of the year. A little clipped up, right? Now, how are the homers feeling today? I haven't gauged the temperature of the homers today. I haven't even broached the topic with the homers because of what happened yesterday in the performance of Kenny Pickett and the performances of Tanner McKee sort of don't kind of support their narrative that Jalen Hurts is this godlike figure that has been sent upon us from on high. I mean, the offense pretty much did not miss a beat without him yesterday. It was the same recipe they've been running all season, too. It's been steady diet of Saquon Barkley, mix in a couple of passes down the sidelines, and pray for the best. And it worked pretty well. I haven't heard the homers. I have not heard my daily Jalen Hurts affirmation yet, basically, is what I'm saying. And I'm waiting for it, and we're running out of time. It's after 9 o'clock tonight. So I want to hear that. I want to hear your the daily homer affirmation about the eliteness of Jalen Hurts today. Please don't let me go through the day without hearing that. We're going to get into the Eagles. We're going to do a little bit of a Flyers recap over the weekend, and we're also going to touch on the WJC. And you might be wondering why I'm not in Ottawa. Well, I'll get into that. I kind of am. Yes and no, I am in Ottawa. I've been to. We'll get into that. We'll also do the of the night segment and our card review as well. So a lot on the plate here for our first show of the week, coming at you a day late because of yesterday, doing some post-game duties. I had to clear the ice program late night against the Kings. So let's start with our day in Philadelphia sports history on December 30th, 1943. It's amazing we had baseball happening in 1943. I thought, oh, yeah, I guess the war was kind of wrapping up. But on this day, the Phillies and the Pirates both traded babes. That's right. And not girls. And not Ruths either. The Phillies traded first baseman Babe Dahlgren to the Pittsburgh Pirates for catcher Babe Phelps. The deal was the last time 2 babes were ever traded for each other in Major League Baseball history. Dahlgren had a good season for Pittsburgh in 44. Batted .289, 12 homers, and 101 RBIs, where, of course, Phelps never came off voluntarily retired list for the Phillies. So, yet again, the Phillies linked to Babe Ruth. Well, linked to a babe, but not the Babe Ruth, as on this date, 1943, the Phillies and the Pittsburgh Pirates traded babes with each other to no success for the Phillies and mild success for the Pirates. And that's it, man. That is my final day in Philadelphia sports history until we do this again on January 1st. Wow. Yeah, we're going to go right back to the front of the book. So we made it through another year of Philadelphia sports history factoids. And then next year, of course, it'll all be new. Well, some of it will be new. We'll hear some old package stuff. Later on in the year, we'll forget all the stuff that I read to you in October by the time next October rolls around. But we'll be hearing some new stuff as we get ready to enter the year. And, of course, that was brought to you by the fine folks here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network, as we are committed to bringing you the most innovative programming there is in the Philadelphia sports landscape. Let's check with Steve here. I got my hope back. I guess, Steve, you're referring to my Christmas wish from the Philadelphia Eagles to give me hope that the organization and the franchise is not in peril and that it's not in a downward turn. I don't know yet, Steve. I don't know if my hope has been returned. I still don't, and I'm going to get into why I still don't believe, Steve. I mean, listen, I acknowledge, because I'd be a hypocrite to say that I don't acknowledge defeat. I don't acknowledge the accomplishment of what I see in front of my face. They still haven't won anything yet. They still have not secured a ring on that finger, the ring that controls them all. They haven't gotten that yet. So, but it's a step. It's a step in that direction. I acknowledge that. Doesn't make me a believer, but I acknowledge it. Hello, Barbara. How are you? The Eagles' offense was smooth yesterday without Hurts holding the ball forever and running every other play. Yeah, you know what, Barbara? It was interesting to see that. Was it smooth? That's an interesting point. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll go with the word smooth, effective, operational. It didn't miss a beat. What did Kenny Pickett do what was different between what Kenny Pickett and Jalen Hurts would have done? I mean, I saw a few tush pushes, right? Kenny Pickett was pushing away. I saw that happening. So that dispels the rumor that Jalen Hurts is the only one that can run the tush push. Listen, I don't downplay what Jalen Hurts brings with the option with his legs. Kenny Pickett is not as mobile as Jalen Hurts, and Kenny Pickett is clipped up himself. But I saw an offense that really didn't miss a beat. AJ got his, Devontae got his, Saquon got his. The offensive line continued to perform. Grant Calcaterra got his. I don't see any other. I don't see a difference, Barbara. I agree with you. And again, I have not gotten my daily homer dose of my Jalen Hurts affirmation yet. And I'm running out of time. Last week, the big story was, oh, look how bad the Eagles are now that Jalen Hurts is out. Look at this. We've lost the game because Jalen Hurts went down. No, we didn't lose that game in the Commanders because Jalen Hurts got hurt. We lost the game because we got players ejected. We forced 5 turnovers from the Washington Commanders and did absolutely nothing with those turnovers, and we gave up 36 points. That had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. It supports the narrative that Jalen Hurts is an above average to average starting quarterback, a starter in this league. And that's all he is until proven otherwise. And I'm sorry. Again, I'm looking at the evidence that's right in front of my face. So, I agree with your point, Barbara, 100%. Didn't know there were other babes. Yeah, I guess that was a popular name at the time. Yeah, I don't know if that's their Christian name, Barbara. I'm sure that's their nickname. But of course, it wasn't the babe. It's like we never get the guy, right? We always get the brother of the guy in this town. Always get the lesser of the brothers. Yeah, so we were dealing with babes back in 43. $50 million a year for 2,900 yards passing is really not good. Barbara, you're preaching to the proverbial here. What is it, $1.6 million a game he makes? $1.6 million. I don't see him putting in $1.6 million worth of work. I honestly don't. I don't. But and it's an interesting point going forward because I don't expect Jalen Hurts to play Sunday. I think that would be silly, right? They're going to want him ready for the playoffs because there is no bye. Next week has got to be the bye week for him, at least. It's also got to be the bye week probably for everybody else, to include Saquon Barkley. But it doesn't matter anymore, Barbara, right? They've achieved Xanadu in the regular season. I acknowledge that. Now it's what they're going to be faced with going forward into the playoffs and how they react to all that. And that's where it matters the most. Jalen Hurts coming into the postseason, what's his record in the postseason? Anybody do the quick fact check? Was it 2-4? Is that his 3-4? Is his record in the postseason? 0-1 and 22, right? So 0-1 and 21. He was 2-1 in 22. So that's what? That's 2-2, and then he was so he's 2-3 in the postseason. So Jalen Hurts brings a 2-3 postseason record to bear next week against either the Commanders or the Packers. So, let's see how that works. Let's see how that works out. But as we get ready, though, I'm not going to gravitate off because there's some things that need to be discussed here. And this is legitimate, guys. I ran this number for you guys last week, or it was a couple weeks ago, and I haven't updated it since. But I am going to give. It deserves to be brought back up as the season is ending, and we're getting to the last game of the year, and the Eagles are the NFC East champions. A couple weeks ago, and again, I have not updated this list, so please bear with me. Where is it? I wrote it down here. There it is. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. The combined record of all the Eagle opponents was 88 and 107. 88 and 107. So the schedule that the Eagles played in 2024, the teams were a combined 20 games under 500. Right? Is that something? Is that something to concern? Are the Eagles a fugazi? Right? Are they churning and are they twisting? Are they running? Are they burning through this stuff because the opponents are just that bad? Is there a big letdown coming down the road against teams like the Lions, and then, God forbid, if we get to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs or the Bills? Is that letdown? Is anybody concerned about the letdown? Because, yes, there's been some beatdowns the Eagles have. Yeah, the Cowboys are a disgrace. The Steelers are a disgrace. The Eagles have not played, with the exception of Baltimore, one game that I can look at. There's one opponent that the Eagles have played all season long that I can look at and say, that's a Super Bowl contender. And the Eagles beat them. I'll give you that. They beat them. But how confident are people heading into the playoffs against a combined record of what is it, 88 and 107? How confident are you? How confident are you to go up against the elite three teams in this league right now, which are Kansas City, Detroit, and Buffalo? And I ran these numbers too. So 2 weeks ago, or this was last week, the combined record of the Buffalo Bill opponents so far this season was 97 and 99. So they were playing a schedule of opponents that were 2 games under 500. The combined record of the Detroit Lions opponents were 93 and 95. And the combined record of Kansas City's opponents was 97 and 101. I don't see anybody else 20 games under 500. It seems like to me that these 3 elite teams who are all, and I haven't even factored in the Minnesota goddamn Vikings into any of this. I'm just saying, is there bigger fish looming out there that the Philadelphia Eagles have not been prepared to play all season? Is the fact that the Eagles have been burning through their opponents like a hot knife through butter, is that going to potentially blow up in the face when they actually play a team that's elite? And are some of the weaknesses of this team that are still there, the glaring weaknesses of this team, the fact that once again, we still, and I ran these numbers, it's kind of messed up, but I'm going to go through it. Kenny Pickett over the last 2 games, before he got hurt, attempted 39 passes, and only 5 of them were to the middle. I'm running the numbers for everybody, right? So maybe it's not just a Jalen Hurts thing. But how confident are you when Jalen Hurts does get reinserted into the game that all of a sudden the entire playbook is going to get turned on and he's going to start zipping, threading needles and hitting tight windows? How confident are you that Jalen Carter, CJ, GJ, or anybody else won't get himself thrown out of a game? How confident are you that a personal foul penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct call might cost the Eagles massive field position issues? How confident are you in your head coach, who hasn't really faced adversity this season, if faced with adversity, will decide to go for it on 4th and 15 on his 10-yard line? I mean, how confident are you guys about all that? And yes, revel in the fact that the Eagles are NFC East champions. They deserve it. They ran roughshod through a friggin' horrible conference and a horrible division. And I agree with you, and I think it should be lauded. I was always about the playoffs. For me, Hurts 2 and 3 in the playoffs, beat 2 teams without QBs at home, not impressed. Damn, Barbara, that's what I'm talking about, man. Yes. I'm looking at the Lions and Vikings offense run beautifully. I guess I'm jealous. Yes, I look at the same thing, Barbara, and it is jealous. I'm jealous too. Now everyone's going to throw the defense. Well, the Eagles defense is going to have something to say about this. The Eagles defense is going to get in the way of Jared Goff or Sam Darnold, which, you know, at the end of the day is Sam Darnold. But here's the concerns about the defense. Is the maturity of Jalen Carter, the maturity of CJ, GJ. It's going to be used as a weapon against this team at some point. They're going to run into a team soon when it means the most, not next week when it means nothing. But when I mean when every snap means something, when every play is magnified, they're going to run into a team that's going to use that immaturity of the Philadelphia Eagles against them. They're going to use it as a psychological weapon. They're going to goat them into penalties. They're going to goat them into those 15-yard personal foul penalties. They're going to run into a team that's coached like that. That's going to tell their players, let them take a shot at you. Push them. Psychologically give them the nudge. And how confident are you in your coach's ability and your coach's culture of this team to respond and not take the bait? Because I'm not very confident at all in it. And if there's a coach out there, and again, if I can see it, any other coach can see it, that this could be used as a weapon against the Eagles. Their hot-headedness of their players and of their coach can be used as a weapon against them. That's an X factor that I don't think anybody's thinking about, that some team might do that to them. How confident are you in that? Or how scared are you in the fact that somebody might do that to the Eagles? I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I agree. Matty Carter himself is asking for trouble with this. Yeah, he is. And he's too important, Barbara. He's a huge piece of that middle of that defense if he gets himself ejected. And you saw it. CJ, GJ, GJ, BJ, KJ, however you say his name. If he's not part of the offense, Tristan McCullum is not a reliable substitute. Jalen Carter has been trolling his opponent since high school. He is the one trying to draw the flag on the other team. Trouble as officials are onto his game. And that's my point, Steve. And wasn't he involved in like a real life incident after the national championship game? I mean, living a life like this, didn't you think you would kind of stop that nonsense? I know his history as well. Listen, if you're going to run that type, if you're going to use this as a weapon, you can't hit people. You can't push them. You can't take that extra shot. You got to. There's a whole like secret life to running that type of using it as a weapon. Smack talking is amazing if you can do it correctly. Smack talking works if you can do it correctly. It does. You can't go over the edge. You can't go over the top. You got to walk a line. And if you can, it's an amazing tool. And I'm telling you, some team is going to use it against them. And it's going to work. And maybe not against Jalen Carter. Maybe it's against the coach. How confident that Sirianni won't blow a gasket on the sideline in something stupid? 41-7. Let's go over the stat pack of this real quick. On the game, the Eagles were 3 for 5 in the red zone. 37 for 63 on the season in the red zone. That has quietly gotten bad. 58% effective they are on the red zone. That is terrible. And I go over this stat every week, and I've been tracking this stat every week. And I guess I just didn't notice it. But 58.7% effective in the red zone heading into the playoffs gives me some concern. They scored 24 first half points. They have now scored 201 first half points on the season for about 12.5 average on the year. They had 17 second half points for about 15 points. So that's kind of where it's been all season long. They've been traditionally a better second half team. Now they did score a first quarter touchdown this week. It wasn't necessarily on the offense, but they did score a first quarter touchdown, but they did not score a first quarter offensive touchdown, which of course they've only done one time all season. And that was last week when they scored 3 of them. They committed 4 penalties, which was really good, but those 4 penalties were all like, 3 of them were 15 yarders? Like there was a ton of them. 96 penalties now for 683 yards on the season. Averages out to about 6 penalties and about 43 yards a game. That's too much. They forced 4 turnovers, now up to 25 on the year, about 1.5. Did not commit any turnovers. They have now committed only 15 turnovers on the season. It's dropped down to about less than 1 a game, 0.9 a game. Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett never got touched. They've only given up 43 sacks for 297 yards, which is about 2.6 sacks a game for about 18 yards. They got to Cooper Rush one time yesterday for 7 yards. Only 41 sacks on the year. And that's been a problem all year. That's been a problem all season. And they went for it one time on fourth down, and they were successful. So far, they've gone for it 26 times in 2024 on fourth down and are 18 for 26, 69%. And it all leads to an Eagles 41-7 victory. So there are some concerns with those numbers. There are some concerns with the red zone efficiency. There is some concerns about the lack of sacks. That's not gone away, and that's going to continue. And now we're going to be up against quarterbacks that are a little bit more better than Cooper Rush. Now we're going up against quarterbacks that if you don't put them on the ground, they're going to make you pay. So that's a concern. But all in all, you got to give them credit. 13-3, you don't fall out of a boat and be 13-3. So I got to give them the credit where the credit is due for a perfect, beautiful season. Awesome season. But does it mean anything to anybody if they go out in the first round? And I guess it's a conversation for a later show, whether or not what a successful season. And I'll throw it out there now to all you watching and listening. I know a lot of you started the season with different expectations. Maybe some of you did. There were a lot of you who held out with the Super Bowl or bust expectation in 2024. Those are the Harden homers right there, man, who took what happened last year and thought that this was a Super Bowl team. But most of us started the season out with, hell, I thought they were going to be 8-9. I didn't think they were making the playoffs. Dead wrong about that. But a lot of people started out with not Super Bowl expectations, but a lot of that has turned. And I'm wondering if they don't win the Super Bowl, is it a failure? I mean, by the essence of winning and championships, it is. And by God's sake, does Nick Sirianni, has he earned another year? Has he earned another year up right now with a division championship? Is what, second as the coach of the Eagles? He's 40 some odd wins in the regular season. Highest winning percentage of any active head coach currently in the NFL. Has that earned him or bought him another year, regardless of what happens from this point forward? I'm interested. I say no. I say Super Bowl saves him and only a Super Bowl. I'm interested because definitely going to be conversations we're going to have later on. BG is the perfect smack talker. Yeah, he walks the line, but he doesn't cross it. Lori Howie and Sirianni love the troublemaker type. Until it costs them, right? Until it costs the team, Barbara. I don't know. Do they love the troublemaker type or do they love the alpha male? Which, that's part of the game. I don't know. Love the troublemaker type. Interesting. Interesting point, Barbara. What is the average red zone effect in this league? I believe, Steve, it's around 65%. I got to look that up, but the last time I saw it was around 65%. 58% is that Super Bowl winning? Is that something that you feel comfortable with heading into the postseason? 58% in the red zone. I tried figuring out the Eagles' opponents in the first two rounds of the playoffs, so either Washington or Green Bay, then either the Rams, Vikings, Lions, all home games. Yes, so right now, I guess, and we'll go over the current playoff picture, and I think a little bit more. It'll come clearer tonight after the game between the Lions and the Niners, which that game is 21-13 San Francisco, end of the first half. But we'll go over the playoff picture here. Actually, let's do it right now, Barbara. You brought it up. Let's bring this bad boy up. So what I understand it to be, this is the current picture. So right now in the NFC, interesting, because right now in the NFC, it's the Vikings as the number 1 seed. The Eagles is number 2, the Rams 3, Detroit 5, Washington 6, and the Packers 7. And of course, Tampa's 4 and the Falcons are 9. They're the only 2 teams that are currently still, and that they're going to cancel each other out. So one of those teams is going to win the NFC South and then ipso facto be the 4th seed So it's really all going to depend, because I believe if Detroit wins tonight, they play Minnesota next week in a winner take all for the division and for the conference, next week against each other. So it's all really going to kind of matter right now. But as far as the Eagles are concerned, I think it can only be the Commanders or the Packers in the first round. So 2 winnable games for the Eagles. 2 teams that the Eagles have beat before, and of course the team that they haven't. So that is your current playoff picture in the NFC. It's about as clear as mud. A little bit more clear in the AFC. Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston, the Steelers, and the Chargers are at 6. There's a fight on for that final playoff spot between the Broncos, Dolphins, and the Bengals, which are, I don't know how they're all, I think they need tiebreakers to help each other out. So we're getting down to it. And there you have, there's your updated playoff picture currently in the NFL. So interesting how, Minnesota, again, this is a team, I wasn't even really talking about Minnesota. They quietly have come up out of nowhere and have had a very effective season. They're a team of the Eagles, how do they stack up against the Eagles? Everyone's going to downplay Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold's had a great season. So all the good football is yet to come. You know what? And heading into the first round of the playoffs, I don't figure the Eagles will lose that first round. I think they could beat Washington, and I definitely think they can beat Green Bay. I don't fear that. Beyond that, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. I expected the team to blow on the first. I expected this team to blow the first half, but come on hard with the solid 10-7 or 11-6. Yeah, with momentum and a strong playoff showing, mostly because of the improved run game. But Steve, you ain't finishing up the point. Was it Super Bowl for you? Was it just a playoff run? I mean, most expectations, and it's okay to say it, people weren't Super Bowl or bust about this team back in September or August, especially with some of the moves that they made in the offseason. Saquon was a great move, but other than that, I mean, what did they really change about anything? The coordinators were the big unknown. That was the big thing, the biggest thing that they changed about this team. So Super Bowl expectations weren't on I didn't have them. I still don't think they're going to do it, but my bottom line is it Super Bowl or everything else? Because in winning, the nature of winning is winning. There is no second place. There's no third place. There's no we won 20 games but got eliminated in the first round. You're the last one standing, or you're the loser. So is that the mindset of Eagle fans right now? That if we don't win the Super Bowl, all this was for nothing? If we don't win the Super Bowl, does it matter what Nick Sirianni's regular season record is? If we don't win the Super Bowl, does it matter that Jalen Hurts is 100 yards or so away from winning or eclipsing, setting the all-time single-season rushing record? Does it matter? Does any of that matter if we don't win the Super Bowl? And more importantly, does it bring Nick Sirianni back another year? Or are you on the MattyB train? It's all about the championships. These are interesting questions. Whoever wins this week between the Lions or Vikings, yep. Yeah, so the loser goes from like 2 or 3, or they go from like 1 to 5, the loser. Yeah. I hope Joe Burrow makes the playoff. He's fun. Yeah, that would be interesting if Cincinnati would find their way into it. I don't fear Detroit because of their injuries. I don't fear Minnesota. Until we show we can take care of Todd Bowles' defense, they are my concern if they make it. Now, does playing Tampa here, does that change people's opinions about the Buccaneers, bringing them up from South Florida to here, which would be what would happen if Eagles did play the Buccaneers at some point in the playoffs? Does that change things? Not if they were playing last weekend, but typically in January. So there's a lot of unknowns, and there's some things that definitely need to be thought about as we move into this final week. And it's okay, in my opinion, to look past the Giants game. This game means absolutely nothing. This game's a pain in the ass. This game is the 5th, or is it the 4th? I don't even know how many preseason games we played now. Is it 3? whatever. It's the additional preseason game at the end of the year. and this is how the game should be treated. 100% should be treated like that. And I'm going to get into the Saquon thing here in a second. But it's now okay to look past the regular season into the playoffs and to start looking ahead at what the opponents the Eagles might have to face. Obviously, Green Bay, Washington is probably going to be the first round, one of those two. How do they stack up against them? We beat Green Bay back in week 1. That's a whole lifetime ago. We lost to Washington 2 weeks ago. So, 49ers missed the field goal. So, Barbara's giving us an update. 21-13 halftime at that game. The last Monday night game of the year. No, I'm sorry. Isn't it one of the wild card games on Monday night? Last Monday night regular season game. I take the team one game at a time, most because it's a matchup and health-based, which cannot be predicted with certainty. If they lose something they should win, it's a failure. Then what? But Steve, if they lose something they should win, what is that? What is something they should win? And has that changed for you from the beginning of the season till now? Because I'm sure in the beginning of the season, you weren't sitting there 13-3, and maybe you were. I don't remember. It's been a lot of water under the bridge during that time. You weren't probably sitting there at 13-3. So what is winning something that they should win? And has that changed? Is winning a Super Bowl something they should win? Or getting to the Super Bowl? I mean, what is it? What in your mind is the success overall about this season? I've heard a lot throughout the season about this team's dominance in the defense and the defensive coordinator, and Jalen Hurts is the greatest thing since sliced bread and all that. So then why can't I get a collective Super Bowl or bust from the Eagle fan base out there? Why can't I get that? If you're so goddamn confident in everything this team has done, even though your combined record has been against teams 20 games under 500, why can I get a confident Super Bowl or bust, or it doesn't matter? Why can't I get that? Or are we conditioned too much now in this town to accept mediocrity and accept second or third place? And that's part of what I'm rebelling against, right? That's part of what my problem is that I see a fugazi. I see something that's fake. I saw fakeness last year in 10-1, and I was right. I see something fake here. I see a dominant team against inferior opponents. One team that I can think of all season long that the Eagles played is a legit Super Bowl contender, and they beat that one team. Now, with all that being said, and I hate to kind of be this negative Nelly, I really do, because boy, it ain't in my character to do that. But I do want to show you guys this. Now that the season is wrapping up, and that pretty much we kind of have a better understanding of how this is all going to end, with maybe the exception of Tampa and Atlanta. And let's use Tampa as let's say Tampa wins the NFC South. This is your 2025 Eagles schedule right now. And I don't know if is it too early to show this? Do Eagle fans not want to see this monstrosity of a 2025 schedule? Right now, this is what you would be faced with in 2025 if Tampa wins the NFC South and Detroit holds on and wins the AFC North or NFC North. Well, actually, no, that won't matter. That won't matter. But this is your 2025 schedule. Does this change your opinion about what this season needs to be? Because I'm going to tell you, this is not a cream puff schedule. Look at this thing. You got to go on the road to Kansas City, Buffalo, Green Bay, Minnesota, and LA. Potentially twice to LA. You got home games against Detroit, Tampa, the Broncos, who are on the rise. This is not going to be a 13-3 schedule. I'm telling you that right now. There's no way. So does this schedule change your opinion about what this season needs to be? Look at that thing. Let that sink in. Now, again, is it too soon to look at this? Is it too soon to prognosticate this? Because every season's different and teams change year by year. But does this give you a Super Bowl warm and fuzzy? I think not. So I just wanted to show that to people to kind of, and I used that schedule a few weeks back as motivation for Eagle fans to really push Eagles to win a Super Bowl this year. So we got to see. Pat, how you doing, man? Good to see you. It's Super Bowl or bust for me. You only get so many chances. So thank you, Barbara. Thank you for being honest. No one else wants to share their honesty. Nobody else wants to step out upon that ledge and tell me what they feel. You're only being honest, Matty. I respect that more than the homers. Yeah, man. Now you're calling them homers. I'm just calling as I see it, Barbara. Right? I'm waiting for other people to chime in with the dominance your team has shown through 2024. And I am going to say your team because they're not mine. I'm out. Right? I'm out. I'm out until certain conditions are met. But the dominance that the Eagles have shown in 2024, why can't I get a resounding Super Bowl or bust? Or nothing is, then none of it's a success. And everybody should be held accountable for not winning a Super Bowl, not held accountable for winning 13 games, not held accountable for winning a division, but held accountable for not winning a Super Bowl. Why can't I get that from the Eagle faithful? I don't extrapolate years. Too much can happen. The NFL allows teams to transform both ways. So, Steve, you're telling me that in your extrapolation theory, that beast of a schedule, you expect wholesale changes to go across the board to Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, both LA teams. Who else is on there? Green Bay, Minnesota. You expect all that to break down in 1 year. It's okay, Steve, to say that that's a beast of a schedule. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say to look at that 2025 schedule and go, stay in 2025. Absolutely. It's okay for you to do that. I bring that up only to just sort of put everybody, maybe refocus everybody on the task at hand, which is putting all your positive energy into winning a Super Bowl. Because as Barbara said, you only get so many chances. It doesn't come around every year. And that 2025 schedule, that's going to be a bitch. I don't care what you say. It's going to be tough. So anyway, and again, I'm waiting to hear, give me the resounding Eagles Nation. I want to hear Super Bowl or bust, or it's all for naught. Now, the other big story, of course, is Saquon Barkley. Is he is or is he ain't? Right? Is he is or is he ain't? Is he going to get the record? Should he get the record? Should he be given an opportunity to get the record? Or is it time to look at the bigger picture? Because God forbid on the first handoff on Sunday, he goes left and his knee goes right. And all of a sudden, pop, bang, boom. There goes his ACL. And there goes everything down the tubes. Is there too much at stake for a 40-year rushing record that could fall? I mean, this thing could definitely fall. And 100 yards, they should have left him in there on Sunday. They should have tried to push him over the edge on Sunday against the Cowboys. Just beat him the rock, man. Come on, break the record on Sunday. That would have ended all this. But collectively, is what's at stake if he gets hurt and he's lost for the playoffs? Would that be the biggest we're Philadelphia thing in the world? And you know what? And I'm bringing it up, and you can blame me if it happens. I'm sorry. It's in the back of everybody's mind. It's in the back of everybody's mind because we're from Philly, and we can't have nice things. So it's a legitimate concern. Think about it. Think about it. It is not that far from reality. So heading into the final game of the season, Saquon Barkley sits, I think it depends on who you're listening to. I got him at 2,005 yards, which is about 100 yards away from tying, 101 yards away from breaking. So he's got to get 101 yards against the Giants. do you chance it in the first half? Give him 2 quarters and just feed him, and that's that. Then he's done. Or you give him one carry, you go a carry at a time and see where we are. I mean, how do we gauge that? Or you know what? He's in sweatpants and a hoodie, and he doesn't even get in the game. Here's a little history I want you guys to digest too, and it's not necessarily history about the rushing record, but it's about the mileage on these running backs' legs heading into the postseason. So of course, currently the single season rushing leader of all time is Eric Dickerson at 21:05. Second, and who had the best second season, which is still on the books, Adrian Peterson in 2012, his MVP season at 2,097 yards. Third all time, Jamal Lewis, 2,066 yards in 2003. Barry Sanders next to him, or underneath him, at 2,053 yards and 97. Derrick Henry in 20 with 2,027 yards. Terrell Davis in 98 with 2,008 yards. Chris Johnson in 09 with 2,009 yards. O.J. Simpson with 2,003 yards and 73. Earl Campbell with 1,934 yards and 80. Amon Green with 1,883 yards in 03. And Barry Sanders for a second time in 94 with 1,883 yards. The reason why I'm telling you the top 10, and I guess you could slap Saquon in there somewhere, is this. Combined, these running backs, these all-time leading season running back people are 4-8 in the playoffs. Their teams are 4-8 in the playoffs of those years. And there's only one Super Bowl appearance of any of them. And that's in 98 with Terrell Davis. And that was a win. But that's it. 4-8 collectively have those running backs been in the playoffs with their teams through that run. Is that something that you need to take into consideration heading into the playoffs? Saquon's carries, what did he have, 33 on Sunday? The most he's had all season? Is the mileage something to be looked upon now? Do you sit him down to give him a break because the bigger picture is a Super Bowl? I personally think this doesn't come around too often. This doesn't come around every year. I read this off to you. I think Derrick Henry was the last one to get close to it in 2020. Let's go back to that list again. Yeah, 2020 was Derrick Henry, and he was at 2,027 yards. Right? It doesn't come around that often. The record's been standing now for 40 seasons. He's 100 yards away. I say you let him take a shot. Give him a half. One half of football. He's got the first half of the game to do it. In front of the home crowd on the final game of the season against his former team. You can't script it out any better. You give him a half, but the first sign of trouble, the first wonky hit, the first time you see a Giant player go low with their helmet, he's done. You keep an eye on that, but you gotta give him a shot, man. How can you snatch that away from him? It's not guaranteed he's gonna have another season like that next year. It's not. You know that as well as I do. This doesn't happen every year. He deserves it, man. Give him a shot, but keep an eye on it. Give him one half of football. Now, the problem with that is if you give him one half of football, then you got to give the rest of the starters, because he's going to have to run behind he's going to have to at least run behind the starting offensive line. So do you weigh the options? And I guarantee you, in Rudy style, right, that if it took them going to the coach and saying, let him do it, play us for a half, we want him to get the record. I know it doesn't just affect Saquon. It affects the entire offense, or at least the offensive line. But I say let him do it, man. I mean, to say that we've had the all-time leading rusher in NFL history, single season, as an Eagle. Again, we don't have nice things in Philadelphia. Would it be nice to say that? Or would it be nicer to say we're the Super Bowl 59 champions? I get it. But could we live in a world where we eat our cake and get it too? I don't know, man. I say let him go. I say let him go. Steve says nothing left to prove for Barkley. I disagree. I think he's got about 101 more things to prove. Only having 2 fumbles and 340 carries is every bit as impressive as Dickerson's. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, and I'm not listening to the Eric Dickerson nonsense. I mean, Dickerson's chewing on some sour grapes. You know, he sees his record probably for the first time really threatened right now to fall. And he knows that, you know, in a week 18 game against the New York Giants, if the Eagles decide to let him play, it's going to go. And he knows it as well. And he's pissed off. And, you know, he doesn't want to see his record go. I wouldn't either. But you know what? Now, if the Eagles do decide to play him, and I know Nick Sirianni's been holding that back, and he might hold that back all week long, does Eric Dickerson, if the Eagles announce that he's playing, does Dickerson make the trip to Philadelphia? Is he in attendance at the link? Would that show respect? Would that be the adult thing to do? I think it would. I wouldn't play any starters, including Barkley, all game itself is meaningless. Okay. I look at it as our bye week. Absolutely. 14 times. 14 times. What's that mean? It's Super Bowl or bust, then it's this FK, this record. Well, is that for you? Is it Super Bowl or bust for you, Steve? There's like 4 guys on your list that aren't Hall of Famers. Yeah, absolutely. I know there's 4. There's a lot of guys that captured lightning in the bottle. I'm not saying Saquon Barkley is a Hall of Famer. That's a separate conversation. And just like I don't think he's the greatest running back that's ever played for the Eagles, let's give him more than 1 year. All right, let's give him more than 1 season before we crown him the greatest running back in Eagle history. I mean, come on, let's be honest here. It's about the front and not the back of the uniform. Okay, well, Steve, I'd like it, man. I'd rather have a better quarterback. I'd rather have a better quarterback too, Barbara. But you got the record, man. It's right there in front of you. A 40-year rushing record. It stood the test of time. It has weathered Adrian Peterson, Barry Sanders, O.J. Simpson. Well, before O.J. Simpson. I guess that was before him. But it has weathered some of the great running backs of all time. Barry Sanders is twice on that list, but he's never even taken down the record. Right? I'm just saying, man. I don't know. I don't think it's as easy as what people are pretending to say it is. It's not. There's an argument to be made on both sides of the coin. If he goes for the record and he gets it in the first half, comes out of the game, no muss, no fuss, we're fine, right? I mean, what do we learn? Now, of course, again, on that first handoff, he cuts left, his knee goes right. I hear that too. So interesting how we're going to see the arguments about both sides of the coin. Should he play or should he not play? I definitely think that you have to play the starting offensive line, but you don't got to play anybody else. You can play the backup wide receivers. You can play the backup. And hell, you could probably take the starters out too on the offensive line. It's Statland University, right? I mean, you might leave Lane Johnson in there. You might leave Malata in there. Right. But other than that, you could start taking out. You could take your starting offensive line out. It's Statland U. They all should be dominant. Remember, Eagle fans, you have a dominant team here that can push everybody through. Your GM has built a deep, dominant team that's going to run to the Super Bowl. So let's have Saquon run behind the second string offensive line. I'm just saying, man. You know, I'm just saying. So there you go with the Eagles talk. 41-7 winners over the Cowboys. Secondary conversation, though. Giants really doesn't really matter much this week as we'll get ready for the playoffs, either the Packers or the Commanders, it looks like at this point. And we, of course, will have you covered here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network all throughout the postseason, no matter how far the Eagles get. But it will culminate on Sunday as we will have the Birds fly by. Post-game, Giants-Eagles, final game of the year, and then we'll get ready to look at your postseason. So make sure that you're tuned in. And of course, the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn will return this week as me and Kyle, I'm sure Kyle will be back. We'll cut up the Cowboy game a little bit and we'll look a little bit at the Giants game. It's going to be hard to dissect this game at all. It's obviously going to be probably talk geared more towards the playoffs than anything else. But the Birds Blast will return this week as me and Kyle will get you ready for the Eagles, Giants, and beyond. So make sure you're tuned in to the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Barbara's keeping us up to date. Lions now have scored a touchdown, so that score is now 21-all as they are starting out play in the second half. So there you go. Oh, and they went for 2. That's right, because it was 20, it was 13. So now it's 21-21. All right. Let's real quick shift gears to the Flyers and then real quick shift gears to WJC. And then we got to do 2 more segments and then I got to wrap it up. Flyers, hit the road to Southern California. A gutsy game against the Ducks. Ducks stink. And then a game yesterday against the Kings. I had the post game. I put out 2 short videos onto our YouTube page, kind of highlighting the problems with our goaltending situation. There were 2 issues. There was more than just the 2 of them, but these were the more glaring issues with Kovasov. They led directly to goals, just bad mechanics, goalie mechanics. And it's not because I don't think they can play goalie. It's the fact that they're just not used to the speed of the NHL. But, we're all tuned into the fact that we're a rebuilding team with the forwards and defensemen. Guess what, folks? We're rebuilding with the goalies too. And that's a whole other situation to deal with. And I don't think we're ready for that. Barbara alludes to a few times on her comments about the 5 goals a game. I mean, I know the team's averaging close to 3.5 a game now, but it does seem like we're running up the goals every week. And I don't think it's going to change. We might catch lightning in the bottle every now and again with our goalies, but they got to play. And they got to figure out the speed of this game, and they got to figure out how to play in the NHL. Take a look at the short videos I put out on our YouTube site, our YouTube page, and just kind of look at that. And you'll see what I'm talking about. 2 very bad, low percentage goal scoring opportunities, but because the mechanic was bad, because they were in one play, Kovasov is taking extra movements before he makes a slide over to try to cut off a shot after a pass. That in the NHL is all the difference that it matters. It's just a whole other level, and you can coach it, but you got to play it. You got to see it. You got to experience it, and you got to keep on experiencing it. You got to keep getting back in there, and you got to keep going through it. And that's just where they're at with the type of goalies they have. They don't have generational talent. There is no, there's no, why am I drawing a complete blank? Dominic Hasek, Patrick Waugh, Carey Prices. There's none of those guys here in the system. There's some competent talent. There's some potential, but it's got to be developed. And the only way to develop it is to play them. And that's why I don't agree with the Ivan Fedotov situation. He needs to go to the minors. All right. They need to send him down to Lehigh Valley. He needs to play. Sitting as a healthy scratch every night is not doing anything for Ivan Fedotov. I understand the reasoning around why they're doing it. They're hedging on Urson right now, I guess, durability situation. And I get it. You only have X amount of times you can call somebody up before he has to go through waivers and all that. But I think he's got one more time he could be sent back down. I think he can do that. So I don't know what good Fedotov is sitting there, not doing anything. He's got to play, because you put him in a game right now, he's going to get shot to hell because he hasn't played in about 2 weeks. So the unfortunate part about the rebuild is it's all encompassing now on the team. And I don't think, and I know I'm going to speak for myself, heading into the season, I don't think I really took that into consideration. I think that escaped me, that part of the rebuild. Of course, I understood about the forwards and the defensemen. I understood we're a work in progress there. But I don't think I was ready for what the goalie situation was going to be. I think maybe I talked myself into Sam Ersson last year and his sample size before he fell off the rails. I think I talked myself into the situation with Sam Ersson being a little bit more developed than it is, and it's not. And we're back to square one when it comes to the goalies. And that's just the reality. And that was something I don't think a lot of Flyer fans were ready for obvious reasons. No one could see the Carter Hart situation happening. So check out the shorts on the YouTube channel. kind of talks about some of the mechanical issues that Kovasov had last night against LA. I will be back with you tomorrow night, New Year's Eve, from San Jose. I won't be at San Jose. From the SAP Center. Is that what they call it out there? It ain't the Shark Tank. Is the SAP Center? I think unofficially it's the Shark Tank. But I got you tomorrow for the Sharks. And then Sal got you on Thursday for the Golden Knights. And I'm back on Sunday for the Maple Leafs. But Mac and Celebrini, our second time seeing him. So that should be fun. And a winnable game. An absolute winnable game for the Flyers. Urson will probably more than likely get to start tomorrow against San Jose. So there's my Flyers 2 cents of what I see, of what I see. I always have high hopes at the beginning of the Flyers game, but then something goes wrong. Is that usually the second period? I can't watch Kovasov back in the crease that far anymore. Well, Steve, I actually yesterday he came out. So again, this is one of the plays that I segregated and I broke down. It was the hand pass goal. It was the goal where the Kings did a hand pass in their own zone. They came out and it was a 3-on-2 and then turned into a 3-on-3 real quick. I'm trying to remember what was for. I'm trying to remember what goal of the game it was. It might have been the Kings' second goal. But the play ended up a pass to the slot and then a pass across the ice for a one-timer. And Kovasov was playing it correctly. He was up on the edge of his crease where you should be during a break-in situation like that. He was being aggressive. And he held his ground. But the problem was when the first initial pass came across the ice, and then he played it, he moved to it, but then as the player went to slide the pass back across the ice, he comes and slides his pads together first, and then he slides over and transitions to try to play the new skater. But by that point, the puck had already arrived and been shot at him and was going over his left shoulder. And that's bad mechanic. It's a wasted movement. You gotta anticipate what's happening, and you gotta minimize that. You gotta move first and then be concerned later on. It's a technique thing too. So he has been playing a little bit more. Listen, I think Kovasov out of him and Fedotov, I feel more comfortable with Kovasov. I honestly do. I like the way he plays goalie better. He moves better laterally. He's faster laterally. His reaction time is faster than Fedotov. Fedotov's a statue back there. And I really hate the way he plays. Kovasov's got to learn technique. He's got to learn North American NHL technique. And that ain't going to happen overnight. And that's just unfortunate part about it. Chris Drury is desperate to save his job. I'm trying to capitalize on screwing him hard. I don't know if we're going to get Sherzerkin. I don't think we're getting him. I think the Rangers going to have a fire sale. I don't know about that. I mean, listen, I'll Panarin. I'll listen. I thought we could make the playoffs and still rebuild. I guess that was no, Barbara. That's not what they want to do. So you've heard Jones say it more than once. You saw them trade Sean Walker at the trading deadline last year. They don't care about making the playoffs. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They don't want to be a flash in the pan. They don't want to show up as an 8th seed this year, take 2 steps back over the next 2 seasons, come back as a 7th seed 3 years from now. No, they want to get to a point where they are a perennial playoff team, that they are a perennial Stanley Cup competitor. So that's why they traded Sean Walker. That made no sense to trade him at the trade deadline last year, because the playoffs are not their primary focus. I'm not saying they're not focused on it and that making the playoffs wouldn't also not be, because they want to win ultimately, but they're not going to change how they're building this thing. They're not going to change how they're going after this rebuild. And I support it, but I'm also a Philadelphia sports fan, and we're all Philadelphia sports fans, and we have notorious short levels of patience. I know you can't say process anymore, but this is what this is for the Flyers. This is their process. They are going to tank without tanking. They are going to deal players at the deadline who could help them make a push. They're going to be a fringe team, straddling that 9th, 10th, 11th seed heading into the trade deadline time. But they're not going to make a move to help them get to the playoffs. They're going to trade away one of their assets to get draft capital. That's how they're going to do this. And that's unfortunately, what this is going to be, and I don't know the timeline on this, and that's what's going to be the most, of course, frustrating part of all this is there's no timeline on when this stuff is going to happen, and hopefully, I still can like formalize words and control all my faculties the next time the Flyers win a goddamn Stanley Cup. I just don't want to be like the Sixers in there. Just Barbara, unfortunately, we can't control that. They're going to control. They're going to get the assets, but what they do with those assets, Ron Hextall will tell you, is not guaranteed. So, stay tuned for all that. But the Flyers back at it tomorrow night in San Jose. I got you for the post game. Sal got you on Thursday, and then I'm back on Sunday. Now to the WJC and the Ottawa thing. Listen, I am base camped about 3 hours from Ottawa. I am going to be making a trip to Ottawa either tomorrow or Wednesday to check in. I've been covering the event from afar, from the internet, doing what I'm doing, but we are going to be on the ground up at Ottawa either on Tuesday or Wednesday and be there throughout the rest. I'll be coming back and forth from here, and then over the weekend I'll be up there steady through the medal round and covering that for you. So we are making our way to Ottawa. It's a process. I got responsibilities and I got to do it here. Stupid ass life and all that, but I'm working my way to Ottawa. I promise, and we will be covering this event. But of course, the WJC is ongoing, and Team USA 2-0-1 through 3 games. Very encouraging the play of the Americans as they go through this tournament. Of course, the big shocker: Team Canada fell in the second game to Latvia, 4-3 in a shootout. That was pretty big time right there. But let's take a look at the standings real quick through Group A and Group B as well. We are still in the first round. Team USA is currently in first place in Pool and Group A. They are 3 games, 7 points, 2-0-1. Canada is in second place with 3 games played, 7 points, 2-0-1 as well. They won last night against Germany. Finland, Latvia, and Germany round out Group A. In Group B, it's Czechoslovakia in first place with 9 points, Sweden in second with 9, Slovakia in third with 5, Kazakhstan with 1 point, and the Swiss, no points so far through 3 games. So the preliminary round will be over here Thursday, I believe, is when the last games of the preliminary round. As far as Team USA goes, or as I should say, as far as Flyers prospect goes, Jetlachenko had an amazing goal in the Latvia game, in the game that Team Canada lost. But that was a beautiful goal, showing off the Jets, so to speak, as he was flying down the ice on a beautiful. It was their first goal of the game. Tomorrow is the game, though. Tomorrow is what we've been kind of waiting for. It's maybe a little bit of a preview of some things. Team USA will play Canada tomorrow, 8:00 from the Canadian Tire Center. I thought this game was on. Is tomorrow the 31st? Yeah, tomorrow is 31st. Tomorrow, 8:00. Wow, it's a game. It's a game. I wish I was. Yeah, I might be there for that one. MattyB might be up there for that. Let's see how we do that. But the Tire Center tomorrow, 8:00. Ottawa, Canadian Tire Center, 8:00. Team USA versus Team Canada. In a game that, of course, if I'm not there, I'll be watching it. We'll feature. It's going to be a good game. So make sure you're tuned in. And with that being said, as we get moving in through this tournament and beyond this tournament, starting when the tournament ends next week, we will start incorporating the NHL draft targets into our Of the Night segment starting next week, along with Philly spotlight players as well. So next week, my vacation ends. Now I'm going to start breaking you down the rest of the Flyer prospects, NHL draft targets, Philly prospect or Philly spotlight players, and then a little bit later on we'll incorporate MLB draft and Phillies prospects. So it's good that it's January, but it's bad because it's good as we're getting ready to kick everything back off and get back to life, but it's bad because it's a lot of work. So I'm being selfish. Sorry. We could, Bar, but Fletcher contracts took the power away from us. Yeah. And that's another big part of this too. And that's what a lot of people are not really focused on. And that's what really hampers this timeline situation is the contracts that Chuck Fletcher gave out. It's very debilitating right now. We have, and I've said this a couple times, heading into next season, we have $13 million of salary cap heading into next season. That's right now. And then I think there's going to be an increase, but heading into right now, we have $13 million of salary cap. And that's with signing some RFAs that we do have. That's with rounding out the phantoms. And that's with signing draft picks that we may have to sign that are coming up to that window of eligibility of either being signed or put back in the draft, or signing first round picks that, we have a bunch of first round picks. So we have $13 million in cap room to work with heading into next summer. And that's because of these contracts. This is the Farabee deal. It's the Lawton deal. It's the Bristol-Linen deal. It's the Couturier deal. It's all these contracts that were given out that were terrible and that we're stuck with. It's the Ryan Ellis contract. It's still on the books for another 2 years. So that's also a part of this rebuild process that is not going away anytime soon. And that's unfortunate. You're great. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We haven't had an 8-0 victory in 19 years. What was that? That was in, oh my God. That was, don't tell me. Don't tell me. New Year's Eve. It had to be out west. 19 years ago was 2018. 19 years ago? So 2000 and what, 5? Is that 19 years ago? I want to say Vancouver, Steve. For some reason, I remember a Vancouver game, but I think that game was in the 80s or 90s. But I remember a blowout in Vancouver on New Year's Eve. Am I right? Tell me if look at that. Look at that, Steve. That's why they pay me the big money, man. Wow, we have no stars, but no cap. Yeah, I'm telling you, Barbara, it's bad. It's bad in Vancouver. Yep. Sorry, 29. Yeah, that's more like it, right? It's back in the 90s. Or wait, 20 years ago today, it was 2004, right? So 3210986. Yeah, 95. Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that. I remember that game. I've told you this, guys, that being a kid, and I was in my 20s, 95. But being a kid at this time of the year, with the Flyers would always go on the road, always play Western Canada, games at this time of the year. And you had an excuse. I mean, you didn't need the excuse because you were off from school, but 10:30 at night, hockey games. I mean, there was nothing better than that. You're off from school. Your mom and dad weren't bothering you. You could sit down. In my case, it was go down in the basement, click on the TV with the pair of pliers, turn the channel, and then sit down at 10:30 at night. And typically I was still going through my Flyers yearbook that I got for Christmas, or New Jersey that I got, or hockey gear, or whatever that I might have gotten. So, it was all still, we were probably playing hockey all day long at this point. And, or we would come together as a group of friends, order some pizza from Original Boston, and sit and watch hockey till 1:00 in the morning, and then it was awesome. And then on Saturday nights, we'd go down to Dom's Video Rental in Tarsdale Avenue in Tacony, rent Youngblood, and pop on Youngblood and watch that in the VCR, keep rewinding it for Tea with Miss McGill, and just be teenage boys, man. It was nothing better than that. So there you have it. There's my WJC and my Flyers check-in here on this Monday night. I miss Lindros, John LeClaire, and the bunch. They should have had a couple of cups. They should have, Barbara. And actually, not to mention it, I will be doing as we get ready for the baseball season, I'm going to start talking. I want to gauge the room here. We're going to do a segment maybe a little bit later on here in the summer about your all-time Flyers lines. I want your all-time top 4 Flyers lines, your defensive pairings, your goalies, and then we'll also do Phillies. We're going to do with the top Phillies lineup, 9 position players or 8 position players, 5 starting pitchers, 3 relievers, and we're going to do that. So we're going to introduce those segments as we move through the winter into the spring. So be on the lookout for those. All right, let's get into the of the night segment because we're running out of time, and I got to get some things done. So here we go. Let's. Of course, this is this segment where we do talk about either a Flyers prospect, an NHL draft target, or a Phillies prospect, and just kind of kick it around a little bit, kind of give you the ins and outs on that person, and what have you. So. Let's get it rolling here. Let me key it up. I'm not ready for it, as you can see. I have the player. I just don't have his numbers brought up, but I got to bring him up. So bear with me. And of course, the internet's being slow. All right, the internet's being slow. All right, here it is. Here we go. All right, let's roll the fun graphic. Here we go. Your of the night segment begins right now. All right, here we go. The other night segment tonight is a Flyers prospect, and it is Adam Ginning, the left-handed defenseman from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. 6'4", 205 pounds, drafted in the 2018 draft in the second round by the Flyers. What do you guys think about these white Phantom uniforms? A little bit too white for me. Big defenseman who plays with a lot of authority, very good along the boards and in front of the net, plays physical and has potential to become a solid shutdown defenseman, moves pretty well and has fine leadership qualities, has some offensive upside and a good first pass. Problem is, folks, when we're talking about a 2018 second round draft pick and it is 2024, about to be 2025, you got to start wondering that the train might have left the station without Adam Ginning being a NHL player. Now, he is a really good AHL. He's a fixture with the Phantoms, has been a fixture with the Phantoms for years. I believe he wears the A for them. He's actually an imposing, as you say, 6'4", 205 pounds. That works for me. I would take that on my blue line any day of the week. But for some odd reason, he just can't seem to break free into the National Hockey League. He's a solid contributor with the Phantoms so far through 30 games this year. He's got no goals, 3 assists, and 3 points, and a -6. So not a good start to his season, but his career, again, a solid Phantom. He's been with the team now, I believe, this is his 4th year with Lehigh Valley, and he's solid with them. He has played he's played 2 games in his career with the Flyers, as he has just not been able to stick. And you got to start asking your question at a certain point: when does a 2018 second round draft pick stop being a prospect? But Adam Ginning is he's got the tools. He just doesn't seem to have the ability to stick. And with the talent, and there is talent on the Flyer blue line, there's probably a lot more talent on the Flyer blue line than there is up front because of just the mass amount of bodies we have. I don't know if Ginning will ever scratch the surface of the Flyers, and maybe he's relegated in his own mind that you know what, being in the second best league in the world is okay because. But 6'4", 205 pounds, I will take that on my blue line any day. And there you have your Flyer prospect of the night, Adam Ginning, the career Phantom. So. All right, that moves us now to the final segment, and this is my utmost best part of the night. This is my funnest part of the night. Let's cue the music. Let's do it.
Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad. What? Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad.
Yeah, that's right. MattyB's card review segment. This is the part of the show where we take a card from my vast sports card collection, and we just sort of cut it up a little bit. We don't actually physically take scissors to it, but we talk about it, talk about some of the value of the card, potential financial value, potential nostalgia value, intrinsic value. Talk about the player a little bit, maybe discuss when I actually pulled this card, because some of these cards I actually remember taking out of packs as a child. We have a lot of fun with this segment. This is I've been a lifelong sports card collector, and just recently was able to get my collections all straightened out. So let's hit it. We're staying in baseball, staying with that iconic 87 Topps, and heading to a obscure player, but one of those players in the 80s growing up that was always really good, but never like really good. He's like kind of like the Eddie Murray kind of player, but I'm not putting this guy and Eddie Murray in the same position. Eddie Murray's a Hall of Famer. This guy wasn't. Maybe a George Bell comparison of just kind of fringe there, really solid player, but not a great player. And there's a bunch of them in the 80s. There's a bunch of those types of players, and he was definitely one for me. And being from Philadelphia and watching this guy play, he played for the Dodgers, so I didn't get an opportunity to see him much, but he was definitely part of of that era of baseball, and very much so present in that era. And then a hell of a manager later on in his career. So here you go. My card of the night is the 87 Mike Scioscia. That's it. The former catcher from the Dodgers. Again, a very iconic person for me in the 80s. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, he's one of those faces of the 80s for me. As silly as it sounds, he wasn't a Hall of Famer by no means. He was a very middling player. In 86, though, he did bat 345. So I'll give him that. But, a very modest career, long career as a player, and of course, a fantastic career as a manager, mainly with the Angels. Was their manager for 18 years to include a World Series championship. So Mike Scioscia, again, he kind of gets lost in the sauce. And I like the card. I for some reason, this card, the way it's this image, these action shot images of the dugout, the old school Dodger uniform. Yeah, and I know the Dodgers have pretty much kept true to their roots, and they don't really change much, but I don't know. It's just cool to me. This image here reminds me of different times, easier times, fun times when I was a kid and baseball ruled supreme, and that's all I cared about. There you have it. This card is absolutely worth nothing financially. I think the most expensive I saw it was for like $150. So you're not making any money off the Mike Scioscia 87 Topps, but it's an iconic card for me. It's an 87 Topps, which is an iconic set. And I like the card. Always liked the card. And I've always liked the player. And he's been a fantastic manager, especially if you're an Angel fan. So there you have it. The 87 Mike Scioscia. Not all these cards are Griffey and Babe Ruth. There are some of these types of players, a lot of these types of players mixed in here. And then as we get into the more obscure ones, you're going to hear my baseball knowledge really kick in. But there you have it. And here's the actual card in its reality right there. It is up on eBay. I'm selling it for $2. So if anybody's interested, head over there and check me out. But this is probably about a 9. Again, all these cards are raw. I only have a couple. Actually, I only have one graded card. I sold the other one already. So I only have one graded card. So these are all raw cards, and here it is. But this is a pretty good condition card in that 87 set, which is tough to have because of the massive cutting issues they had with that set. But there you have it. The 87 Mike Scioscia, my card of the night. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing that as much as I did preparing that. Lindros, sorry, 29 years. There's that one. Steve says Lindros decided to take Skinny Joe's dollars. Yeah, he did. It's damn concussions too, man. 18 draft choice. He should have been. Yeah, I agree. I think the boat might have sailed for Adam Jimmy by now. MLB actually is showing baseball cards. I think they got the idea. No, it's called Carded. Actually, it's a really good show. I watch it every night. It's programmed to tape on my Hulu. Yeah, it's a really good show. Scioscia he was a solid catcher, Steve, and he's iconic to me of that era. He wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he was part of a very good franchise. And he had lasting power. He batted for above average for the 80s, and he caught an interesting staff that comprised itself of Valenzuela, Oral Hershiser, Rick Honeycutt, players, some interesting personalities that he had to deal with, and Tommy Lasorda. I mean, did he give way to Piazza? I mean, that's kind of how that worked out, right? He gave way to Piazza. So he had staying power for a catcher, which is very rare as well. So he won a World Series. Yeah, he won the World Series with the Rally Monkey back in 2003. So yeah, I'm a Mike Sosa. Again, I like the card. It's iconic to me. So, all right. But anyway, that, my friends, is going to take us to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. It was our first show back on our broadcasting week. It's going to be a wonky week tomorrow. I will be back for the post-game show for the Flyers, but no final word. We'll be back on Wednesday night on New Year's Day for the final word, and then Thursday as well. So be on the lookout for that. Be also on the lookout for the Clear the Ice programs tomorrow against the San Jose Sharks, Thursday against Vegas. Now, Thursday night is late, so Sal's going to stay up late and do this one. I want to see if he bitches about it, if he can handle it doing one lousy West Coast game when I do them all. I'm making Sal do this Thursday night game in Vegas. And I'll be back on Sunday for the Maple Leafs. So we'll see how that works out. And then, of course, the Flyby Eagles post-game show, Giants edition. And then Kyle Quinn and me wrapping up the Birds Blast for the regular season. Our 5th year doing the show is wrapping up on Thursday-ish. And, of course, we've got you covered through the playoffs as long as the Flyers, as long as the Eagles last. So, but me and Kyle will wrap up our regular season Birds Blast. So, and then, of course, my show every Sunday through Thursday when I'm not doing post games. So there you have it. There's the schedule for the week. We talked a little bit about the Eagle-Cowboy game. We talked about the importance and, yes, the massive accomplishment that was winning a 2024 NFC Eastern Division Championship, and the fact that no team has repeated as NFC East champions since the 03-04 Eagles. And it's something that should be recognized and acknowledged and reveled in. But we also then talked about what is a success of this season. Is it a Super Bowl championship? Is that the ultimate success? Is anything less acceptable? And what is the collateral damage for anything less? Has Nick Sirianni bought himself at least one more year right now? Or does he need to win more? Does he need to win the ultimate prize? I say he does. We also talked about the Saquon Barkley question, the question that's going to dominate the sports talk airwaves all week long. Should he play and go for the record? Even though I went over 10 or 11 former single-season rushing leaders and talked to you about the 4-8 collective records they have had in the playoffs. Some of them didn't even get to the playoffs, but the 4-8 collective records that they had in the playoffs, and the only one Super Bowl championship that one of them had. So where do you stand on that? Also talked about, of course, the narrative, whether or not homers are feeling a little bit silly today because Tanner McKee and Kenny Pickett handled the offense pretty seamlessly against the Dallas Cowboys. And does that hurt their narrative that Jalen Hurts is some sort of god? We recapped some of the Flyers' woes and struggles. Talked about really the goalie problem, or the goalie not problem, but the goalie situation being now part of the rebuild. Recap some WJC for you. Did our of the night segment and our card of the night as well. So a lot of stuff to go through tonight. And I want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride. Thank you, Barbara. I will see you next time as well. For the rest of you out there, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your night and have a even better tomorrow. We will talk then. I will see you when I see you guys. Take care.
I'll be coming up hot for a minute. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. I drop the top when I'm in it. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Yeah, I'm so. Everybody know I'm you know when the click through. Try to send this possibly a trophy.